Hey kids, howdy, and welcome to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology, and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. It's eclipse season, Zoe.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're there. The first eclipse is this week, indeed. It's the week of September 16th through the 22nd. And it's actually a big week because we got eclipse season starting up, and it's also the autumnal equinox. So we got a whole bunch of things to chat about this week, but let's start, as we always do, with a question. I thought this was kind of an adorable question, so it's not exactly going to tax my astrological acumen, but it was a sweet question, and so I for that, Dorian writes, I am fully aware of the changes that happened to you in your life during your Saturn return. I myself have already been through my first. She gets her age is 33. My significant other is only 28, breaching his adventure. I want to know if you could help advise me on helping this person. And in all caps, it's like, how do you help someone in their Saturn return? Question mark, exclamation point, explanation point.
I think a lot of people have that inquiry.
Well, that's why I wanted to answer the question, because it's exactly right. And so for the listeners who are in their late 20s where this is about to happen, or their late 50s where it's about to happen for the second time, this one's for you. I know it's a very broad and vague question, but I absolutely love to hear your opinion. Forgive me that I am not paying for your attention because it is due. Well, that's very sweet. Thank you. Thank you lots and lots. Yeah, exactly right. So that was exactly the spirit in which I'm reminded of a session I had many years ago. Not that many years ago, but 5 or 6 years ago, I lost a client because the session included that Pluto was about to cross their ascendant, a really difficult transit. And when the session was over and they listened to the recording, they did not feel like I had guided them enough about how to navigate. And I sort of pushed back because I don't actually think that's true. I think I did, but I think that she's scared of the transit and felt overwhelmed by not having a tether to help her allay the fears. And nothing I could have said would have actually made a difference about what changes were brought, but the anticipation of it was where her anxiety was, and I couldn't have helped her with that anyway.
Right.
Oh, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just failed her miserably, and so I deserve losing that client. But this felt like similar to that. It's like, I don't know, but I'll say a couple of things that might be helpful. Number one, Dorian, you've been through yours. So that right there gives you access to help the person who has not yet been through theirs. This is a principle in life, that you can have one day of wisdom and help the person who has half a day. So that's one thing to navigate. The other thing about Saturn is Saturn's return is just a moment that happens after about 28, 29, or 30 years, which means you have a lot of data about what karmic lessons you are likely to bump into in your Saturn return, because all you have to do is look back at the patterns you are aware of already. What are the mistakes you continually make? What are the ways in which you shirk responsibility that's problematic? What are the ways discipline evades you? What are the ways that you bump into same sort of or similar sort of struggles in a pattern-like way that maybe remind you of the family of origin, right? So the Saturn return should not be a surprise.
Interesting.
One of my biggest character flaws is impatience, I should say. I am an incredibly impatient man. And I move and speak and process very, very fast. And my challenge with that is that I've never met anybody in my life that processed as fast as I do. And I'm impatient. So when you're not keeping up, I'm going to be agitated with you. Now, I'm 61. I'm not 28 any longer. But like, I remember that one of the biggest challenges of my Saturn return was how impatient I was for it to end. And I remember calling my pal Abby Starr, who was one of my first, friends who was an astrologer, saying, "When's it going to be over? When's it going to be over?" And so when I look back at that time of what I was struggling with in my late 20s, it was absolutely about patience and control, because I was still living under the illusion that I could control everything. And I was bumping up against that in my Saturn return. But that was not a surprise. Ask your friends, what do you think I'm going to struggle with? I mean, I'm kidding about that, but you understand the point I'm making, right? So
Okay, but I kind of like that. Ask your friend. I don't know. Have an honest conversation, because I haven't really heard of the Saturn return framed in this way as something that you can kind of predict the themes that are going to happen. So I don't know. I like a little self-awareness. Ask your friends.
I love that. I love that. The other thing, Dorian, is if you look at his chart and see where his Saturn is placed and what house it's in, you don't even need to be like some brilliant astrologer to figure this out. You could get a chart on astro.com, you could look and see, and then you just get out the best astrology tool there is for teaching. It's Google.
Cool.
My Saturn return in Pisces, or wherever it's going to be, Aries maybe, if it's in about 2 years, right? So it's like you Google it. And so the archetypes give you clues as well.
Sure.
My Saturn is in my second house, which is about what do I want? Well, what do I want is I want everything, and I want it delivered.
Yeah.
Right? So my Saturn return was very much about bumping into I don't get what I want and being frustrated about that. Second Saturn return was completely different than that, because and I'll say this about that and then we'll put this to bed. My second Saturn return I thought was going to be easy-ish because I'd done so much karmic work on myself. And that was a piece of arrogant hubris that I bumped into in 2022 because, oh my motherfucking God, that was hard. But I did my second Saturn return like I was Saturn. Right? Where I did my first Saturn return as a person being hit by Saturn and having my knuckles rapped by the teacher. Second Saturn return, I was the teacher. I was clear enough about the patterns that were coming up because they were old patterns of being reminded of I don't get what I want, and what do I do with that, and what are the strongest desires I have, and how have I been selling myself short of those desires by staying in alignment with wanting something from someone who couldn't give it to me. And if you can read between the lines, I ended a 9-year friends with benefits relationship that was starting to blossom into something else, but it turned out to be a lesson and not my next boyfriend. So I just want to say that we are totally like a steamroller victim in the first Saturn return, and we're sitting in the driver's seat in the second one if you have enough awareness to understand how your patterns are going to bring you through certain lessons. Big week because it is both the kickoff of eclipse season, but also the autumnal equinox, days and nights of equal length, is hitting us on Sunday. So we've got an eclipse tomorrow. And then Sunday is our autumnal equinox. So I want to talk a little bit about the structure of our solar system and the phenomena of both equinoxes, solstices, and eclipse, because they're all sort of related in this perfect way. Our solar system was sort of set up to generate life and then consciousness, or rather, maybe it came the other way. Consciousness, then life? I don't know. That's millions, billions of years ago. And then, the human organism and civilization and our consciousness. I have always described the structure of how or why eclipse happens with this language. I ask you, listeners, to imagine the Earth's orbit around the sun. Then I ask you to imagine a smaller circle of energy, which is the moon's orbit around the Earth. And that the small circle is sort of sitting on top of the big circle because the moon is orbiting the Earth, and that Earth is creating that large circle around the sun. So then where those circles intersect, there's these vectors of energy that shoot out from that point. One that sort of moves what we call forward, and we call that the north node. And then the other vector of energy that shoots out the back end, we call the south node. And those represent archetypally the future, north node, and the past, as we're moving out of it, south node. A dear one of mine, shout out to Virginia, sent me a video the other day of Neil Tyson deGrasse giving a more scientific explanation of this. And I'm going to grab that language and add it here because I think it will help some people understand a little bit better. First, imagine the Earth, and we have this equator. Right, the equator is a band it's a line around the center of the Earth, and if you projected that line up into the heavens, it would create a circle around the system that we would call the celestial equator. But there's another line of energy that sort of circumnavigates the Earth and is projected up into the heavens, and it has a 23-degree differential from that line around the equator. Why is there a 23-degree differential? Because that's the tilt of the Earth. See, if the Earth wasn't tilted, the equator would become the celestial equator, and that would be our path around the sun. But the Earth is tilted, so we don't travel around the sun with our equator. We travel around the sun in this 23-degree angle off the equator, and that is called the ecliptic. It is the path of the sun around the Earth that responds to this 23-degree tilt. So if you're with me right now, if you've got this visual in your head, there are two things to say about this 23-degree tilt and this ecliptic, which is the path that the sun is going to follow around the Earth. Because it's tilted 23 degrees, that's why we have seasons. And for a quarter of the year, as it is now, the Earth is more upright in that tilt, in that 23-degree tilt. So our days and nights are of equal length. Then in 3 months' time, the tilt will be such that it's the shortest day up in the north, longest in the south. We have an equinox. Then 3 months later, it tilts again to the other side, and we start our astrological year with the vernal equinox. And then one more turn of a quarter has it, back to, hopefully I didn't skip one of those points. You get the point, right? Summer, autumn, winter, spring, all the different, things. So that 23-degree tilt creates seasons. Without seasons, we'd have no farming. Without farming, we would have no capacity to store food and create civilization. Without storing food to create civilization, we would have no one to specialize and do other things to help the community besides hunting and gathering. And guess what some of those specialists did? They looked up and they said, holy shit, there's a 23-degree differential. Well, they didn't say there's a 23 differential. But they said, oh, look, the sun is over here. It's time to plant. Oh, look, the sun's over there. It's time to harvest. Oh, look, the sun's over there. It's time to sort of put things away and rest for the winter. So the 23-degree tilt to the Earth generates seasons. That is why we're here. But that 23-degree angle tilt is also the path of the sun around the Earth that we call the ecliptic. That's a word we use in astrology a lot because it refers to the sort of imaginary flat disk that we think the whole solar system is moving as. It really isn't quite that flat. It moves up and down in declination, but you get the point. It's like everything's on a same or similar plane. So when we look at the moon's influence, the moon has a path up there in the sky, a line of movement, just like the celestial equator and now this ecliptic. There's the moon line. When the moon's line crosses the path of the sun's ecliptic, that new moon and full moon is going to be an eclipse because the angles are right to the north node or the south node. Earth, sun, north node, earth, sun, south node. That's when we move through the shadow, and every lunation, 2, sometimes 3, even 4 now and then, shadow passes happen because of this alignment. Now we have to add yet another little synchronicity to that. Because if you compare the size of the moon to the size of the sun is like 400 times larger than the moon, but it's also 400 miles, kilometers, or percentages further away. That's why the size lines up as perfect. And so the moon, when it covers the sun in a total eclipse, this is not a total eclipse season, so we're not having any total eclipses. But if it were, or any total eclipse, we see, in the new moon, that is a solar eclipse, we would see the entire sun blocked out. And while I can say something about the tilt of the earth and seasonality, and science will back that up, it's a total mystical, assertion to say that because the eclipses are total, because of this synchronistic difference in size that creates the density of the shadow passages that we go through, I'm just going to go out and say on a mystical limb and say that's why we have consciousness. Again, this is more dad joke than astrology, but it's like we have a system here that regularly turns itself off and turns itself back on again. Because the solar system called up customer service a billion years ago and said, what do we do? It's customer service said, have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? And the sun and the moon and the earth aligned themselves up in such a way that they could turn themselves off and turn themselves on again every 6 months. Now, again, this is total bullshit. Like, I don't even believe this on a mystical level, sort of. But somewhere in my perceptions of the tilt of the earth, the majesticness of eclipses, the phenomenality of the size differential, all of these things are the Goldilocks perfect storm of why we have life itself here on Earth. A full moon is a lunar eclipse. I always have to say that out loud because 30 years of an astrologer, I still have to say, is it an equinox or a solstice? Is a new moon a solar eclipse? Is a full moon a lunar? And that's what it is. But I always have to look. I literally always have to look because that's just the way my brain works. So an eclipse that's a full moon is just like any other full moon. It's a time when we practice gratitude for that which we've already created, and we release from an unconscious place that which no longer serves us. And this is a full moon just like no other. So we are, in fact, doing just that. Because the sun is in Virgo, our conscious awareness is on the healing of the instrument that we're engaged in, the putting things together and organizing and preparing for what's to come. In the arc of the Northern Hemisphere order of archetypes in the zodiac, it is Virgo that sort of takes us, more towards, it's the signal that we're moving towards the dark at the moment when the days and nights are of equal length, but it's autumnal equinox up here. We're moving towards the dark and releasing the whole year as we move through winter. And this is a south node eclipse season, which doubles down on the idea that we're releasing the past, because the south node is the past. And we're letting things go from this perspective of conscious awareness of the healing process that we're in, and anything and everything that requires us to understand the moving parts, to put things together so that we can have more efficient lives, more, proactive and activated lives, because the machinery's working well, and so there's both physical, emotional, interactional. And so when the moon is in Pisces, we're thinking about what's our spiritual connection? How is our energetic support that allows us to animate? Pisces Virgo is the spirit flesh continuum. So we receive our animating energy through the sort of oneness, unified, all there is energy of Pisces, and it filters into Virgo that then animates our bodies for action, right? So the spirit animates the body. And so this is one of those full moon eclipses where we're letting things go at a very deep unconscious level. This is absolutely one of those full moons where that prayer that I share occasionally fits, where it's like, I'm ready to now release anything and everything, known and unknown, conscious and unconscious, that would inhibit me from walking a life that is more healed, prosperous, joyful, and efficient, effective, and magnificent. And so it is. Now, I said that the other day around something, and someone said, oh, you always say that. It's like, no, not always. Only when there's a strong element of that which would be unknown to you. And a Pisces full moon would absolutely be where I originated this prayer from. Because if the moon is in a sign that represents the vast abyss and the void of the unconscious that lives within all of us, how could we know what we're releasing other than to be surrendered to allowing anything to release that would impact us moving in a healed way? We have to then just trust the Virgo side of this equation to put all the pieces together and just lay back on the surgeon's table and let this full moon south node eclipse energy just take things away from you. There is a profound grand earth trine built into this eclipse. So this I definitely want to talk about, especially because of what Pluto has recently done. So we'll start with Uranus in Taurus. The fast change, revolutionary movement, I didn't see that coming energy, is in Taurus. And Taurus is a grounded and stable earth sign where we would think change happens slowly. And what Uranus in Taurus has done for the last, 6, 7 years, however long it's been there, has been sort of rocking our worlds because solid, stable things in our lives are, changing revolutionarily with the fast change planet in Taurus. The sun, as I've mentioned, is in Virgo, the other, the second earth sign where we're in health and bodies and integration and putting things together. In Taurus, we're about the sensuality of being here. And in Virgo, we make it work well. The third earth sign is Capricorn, the sign of structures. World structures, governments, laws, housing, banking, all of the things that started to topple when Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2007 and 8. We've seen the evidence of Pluto's capacity to destroy old structures. So Pluto has moved out of Capricorn into Aquarius like twice now, but has always backtracked in because he's not quite ready to be done. And my language is destroying the structures in our lives that really need to go. Out there in the world, we see this as the extinction grab from all the conservative energies in countries all over the world are trying to sort of not die out when a new world order of a diverse home, where a community where all are fed wants to rise up. And you can see the evidence of the old grabbing and trying to keep the old in place. Well, that applies to us on a personal level. If it's happening out there, it's happening inside of here. So when Pluto moved back into Capricorn, that signaled us all on a personal level that we were ready to dismantle the structures we've been dismantling in our own lives, but weren't quite done with. We weren't quite ready to sail off into Pluto and Aquarius. And Pluto turned around the other day where he'll be for a couple of months, just in time for this eclipse to create this grand earth trine. So earth trines are manifestation vortexes. They create energy, and they create energy in form because earth is a form element. So that means fast change and slow change and our conscious awareness are all marinating in this lunar cycle. In fact, at the new moon, Pluto had already moved in to Capricorn. So this whole lunar cycle has this grand Earth trine in it, and it's peaking now and over the next 4 or 5 days as the sun finishes his traversing through Virgo. So you've got a vortex of change that is fast and revolutionary, slow and molecular, and our conscious awareness is watching it happen. And you could call that a vortex for manifestation of something new, but we're in a full moon where we're going to be releasing from the unconscious, and it's an eclipse, which means it's transformative. So do you see where I'm going with this, though? It's like this whole lunar cycle has the capacity to have us generate new forms of consciousness for ourselves. New moon in Virgo kicked off a healing, form-related lunar cycle inside of which new structures can rise up. But man, oh man, we got to lie down on the table and take the surgery that's happening with this eclipse. Chiron and Venus are in a dead heat opposition in this full moon, which means our wounded spaces and our hearts are activated. If you've been through a breakup, a relationship challenge, deep healing processes in your personal life just based on your narrative, they're gonna be dinging and screaming at this full moon. Whether that's painful because there's more wounding to, more wound healing to happen, or it's celebratory because you're further down the line and are able to let go of the obsession or release the person or release the anxious attachment. It's in there to have that happen, but astrology, it's going to hit everybody at an individual level based on your narrative, based on your heart, based on your healing, based on your relationship dynamics at this time. There's a square from Jupiter to the sun during this full moon, and so therefore a square to the moon as well. It's a T-square. So Jupiter, the planet of more and bounty, is in the room, but he's squaring our conscious awareness, the sun, and our unconscious mind, the moon. And so Jupiter's shadow of extra and overvaluing things is going to be all over these couple of days that peaks tomorrow. So today, tomorrow, Wednesday, lot of big energy, and because Jupiter's in Gemini, that could be stuck in your head. Watch out for overthinking and monkey mind and anxiety as the energy is so amplified. And the last thing I'll throw in there is Mars, unhappily in Cancer, is squaring the nodes of the moon. So we're making choices about how we move. Mars square the south node does imply that something from the past wants to be in an action-oriented way handled. Squares are like lessons and conflicts and obstacles we got to process, right? So Mars squaring the south node means there's a past thing we got to process and let go of, and forging new things, Mars square the north node, is clunky. I think it's valuable that the planet that represents our path through life, when our path is being transformed in an eclipse, is squaring the nodes, even though that energy is bumpy and implies more conflict than flow. That Mars is touching the nodes of the moon means movement is happening, and we ultimately benefit. It's a very intense full moon. It kicks off 2 weeks of amplified wormhole energy. Remember the prayer to the unconscious and let the solar system do the rest. So I don't usually follow the Thursday, Friday, Saturday energy in these podcasts. You can get that in my daily, Red Robe Astrology videos, or if you're a subscriber to my written stuff, you see the everyday. But I think it's interesting that we're in this full moon tomorrow where I describe what the Sun, Uranus, and Pluto are doing. I'll point out that this whole week, even though there'll be the amplified energy of the full moon eclipse, stuff and all those squares that we're going to be bumping up against, in the background is this incredibly powerful manifestation vortex of energy. And on Thursday, the sun will peak the trine with Uranus, and on Saturday, he peaks the trine with Pluto. So that means that as we finish out this entire week, our conscious awareness is very aligned with all the changes that are possible. And since they're holding this grand trine sensation of energy, this can be an incredibly powerful week for understanding the changes that you're going on in a consciousness way, but also movement and action and things you're working on can get pushed forward with some ease and grace when you've got the sun working so well with the two agents of change. I'll throw in there on Friday, the sun will oppose Neptune, and so the whole thing is shrouded with a little bit of confusion and fog. You have to maybe squint a little to feel the value. And mostly, I would say, because the sun is also opposing Neptune in this, just bring your spiritual practice into the end of the week and know that inside of the cloud of fuzzy Neptunian whatever is guidance, wisdom, intuitive information that we might have to quiet ourselves to feel. But so it's like the coda to the eclipse tomorrow. Then it's a juicy Sunday, kids. That's the day of the equinox. The sun will move into Libra at 5:44 a.m. Pacific time on Sunday. That's the day that I'm going to honor and celebrate the equinox. I have a tendency to do this. If the sun changes signs in the middle of the day, my time frame, my time zone, I don't celebrate the equinox or solstice till I wake up inside the new mansion. So technically, I'll be up before the sun changes signs because I'm up at 4, and so I will already have been up a little while before the sun moves in, but I will still count Sunday as my celebration day because I have the day off. But that's the day we start the Libra mansion. Besides the idea that you want to celebrate the notion of days and nights of equal length by honoring the balance and harmony that exists in your life already, I always do a mandala at the spring equinox. I don't always do one at the autumnal one, but it's certainly a wonderful artistic expression of balance and harmony and wholeness to draw a circle and have it represent your psyche or consciousness. I've known people, I've never done this, who do circular vision boards at the equinoxes and just sort of use imagery that represents balance and harmony and an equal access to the consciousness of light and the shadow of dark. That's what we celebrate. And in the autumnal, equinox, there's more of an emphasis of being prepared for the dark. Whereas in spring, there's the anticipation of the new renewal to come. We don't have that this time. They've got that down under, all you folks who listen to me, because I know some of you down there, hey, everybody down under. That is your spring renewal. You will have the sense of days and nights of equal length with the excitation of new, whereas in the autumnal equinox, it's the days and nights of equal length with the anticipation of slowing down to turn the year. Another thing that's happening on Sunday evening, about 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, is our friend Venus will leave Libra, where she's at home and happy, and into Scorpio, where she's not at home and not happy. She's rules Taurus. It's one of her ruling signs, and Scorpio, being the opposite of Taurus, makes this a sign of her detriment. She's not comfortable here because it's too intense emotionally. It's all that tumultuous water. And think about this. Venus just came out of one of her other happy places, the air sign of Libra, where everything's about balance and harmony and easy reflection and love coming to stasis and forgiveness being natural. And then we move into a very different territory with Venus in Scorpio, where it's like, I love you to death, and I mean that literally. If you hurt me, I'll kill you off. I have two friends. I have a friend with Venus in Scorpio who has been like, there's a line of dead people behind her from just like, okay, you hurt my feelings, you're gone. And then I have this other friend with Venus in Capricorn, and she said to me the other day, why can't I let go of these friendships that are clearly not really serving me? And she's not doing this in an unhealthy way. It's that she feels beholden when she maybe ought to be like done, and it's because she has Venus in Capricorn, the goal they attended to the last drop kind of thing. So Venus in Scorpio for 3.5 weeks means more intense emotional expression The same within our intimate relationships. Things get a little bit more about change and transformation, passionate and sexy. Venus in Taurus is great, by the way, for investing. Venus rules
Oh.
money, and Taurus rules like money in coin in your pocket. And Scorpio, the opposite sign, rules what we do with money. So lending money, borrowing money, investing money, making money, you make money. So I'll throw that in there for the 3.5 weeks of Venus in Scorpio. And yeah, things are just going to get a little more intense. So Sunday's a big day. It sort of starts out in the peaceful and harmonious sense of Libra creating a balanced day of equal nights and equal days. And by the time we go to bed, or at least by the time I go to bed, we're in an emotional shit show for about 3 weeks. Enjoy the intensity and have at it.
Did you know that Michael has a daily astro alert? If you enjoy hearing the weekly astrology, you might like knowing more about each day. When you subscribe for the daily astro alerts, you'll get an in-depth explanation of the day's astrology sent right to your email. Subscriptions are only $10 a month, or you can purchase the yearly subscription at the reduced price of $100. To subscribe, head over to michaellennox.com. All right, it's dream segment time. Every week, Dr. Michael will interpret dreams that are sent in via email or take a live caller. If you would like your dream interpreted on the podcast, you can go ahead and email us at dreams@michaellennox.com. Hopefully your dream will make it onto the show.
This dream was sent in by Zdenka, who actually mentions that she sent in a question a while ago and we pronounced her name right.
Ooh, I love that. You know, I have a thing about that, Zoe. It's like really important to me to do my best at that. So I do sort of pride myself because a lot of, I have clients all the time. It's like, how do you say that?
Yeah.
I will say this. I have looked up my fair share of foreign names
Yes.
to hear the little, Google pronouncing, but I love getting a name right. So thank you for letting me know that.
Yeah. And it's cool to hear from a person again who's
Yeah,
written
no,
in.
fans, people who listen.
Yeah.
Yay.
So she says, "Hello, Dr. Michael and Zoe. I'm not afraid to admit I'm addicted to your podcast and the daily astro alerts. Thank
Oh,
you
yeah,
so
love that.
much. Last night, I made and ate mugwort cake with intentions to get some clarity in my situation, and this is the dream that was presented to me. I was with my partner of almost 4 years, and he was telling me someone told him we can go to the river and pick up huge salmon by hands, as the river was too full of them, and they wanted them gone ASAP. It was for free. I said, we're vegans. We don't eat fish. And he said again, but it's for free. I thought to myself, how typical for him. And I was angry, but I went. The river was absolutely filthy and looked like it was after a tsunami, full of debris and rubbish. I saw some huge white fish, but salmon should be pink, and these looked sick and dead. The water was dark brown and quite dirty. He then started handing me bottles of beer he managed to fish out from the river, laughing and happy. The bottles were covered with mud and rubbish. He handed me 4, and I thought, it's an alcohol, so it should sterilize. So I've opened 1 bottle and washed the 3 remaining with the beer. I then felt better that he wouldn't get sick if he drank from the bottles. Then I woke up. She gives us a little background and
Yeah,
says,
good.
I
I
would
really
like
need
to
it.
say we were in a long distance relationship and I broke up with him 2 weeks ago because I didn't want to be long distance anymore and he wasn't going to move in with me as he kept promising for 4 years. Thank you for your insight. So I'm curious on your
Oh
interpretation
yeah.
of
No,
this
first of all,
because
thank God that she offered the extra, because I without that I'd be
you'd just be shooting in the
hampered.
dark here.
Yeah, I would. I mean, the river of life, what are you fed, the vegan thing. I mean, there's
Yeah.
certainly lots to grab onto, but that clarity tells us what the conflict is in waking life. So that allows me to receive the dream in a more specific area. If I'm going to tumble into the dream with that background, I'm going to get into the right room instead of just being in like the
Right.
river with the dirty stuff.
Yeah, I'm so curious how this lines
Yeah,
up.
yeah. We'll see where we get. So first of all, let me talk about mugwort. So I love that that she's petitioning her dreams. Yay. So that's the act of asking your dreams in any fashion, writing it down, saying a prayer. Hey, I want to get a dream. In this case, she made a mugwort cake, and I'm assuming she ate it. Mugwort is an herb or plant, and it is thought to have properties that increase dreaming,
Yeah, I've
both
heard.
when ingested and also this was when I was in my 18-month sort of Christed walk, so I was vibrating like just insane. But I would put mugwort under my pillow during that period of time and would have an increased dream experience. That's not really that's not my real human. Once that period was over, I became a regular person with a personality and all kinds of flaws. The world had a reprieve from my nonsense for 18 months. But mugwort works. Go to the river has so many connotations about vibrance. We would go to the river for water if we live near a river. We would go to the river to wash. We would go to the river to communicate and connect with people that were, in our community. We would leave from the river. If we live near a river, we could receive goods and send goods. I mean, there's just so much about rivers and the river of life, the flow of things. Even in the natural world, rivers are the interesting way that we can identify that water is in this beautiful system where it drops rains and it forms rivers that go back to the sea that evaporates to the air and does it all over again. So we could go to the river is all about we, right? And now we know that they've broken up in real life. And so there's all of these ways that the salmon and the river are like this invitation to be fed I'm going to go to the river with my beloved, but the beloved relationship is over. So now it's like, oh, I don't even eat that. I'm vegan. Salmon is non-vegan. That's like a difference in values right there, even if her boyfriend was vegan too. But you understand, just the idea that what I can eat and what this person is offering is incompatible.
Yes.
That can be translated to a relationship. What you're offering to feed me from 4 years of distance, I can't eat anymore. I'm a vegan. I don't eat your salmon. Take it away. And it's like, but it's free is sort of like the plaintive cry of we're already together. We already know each other. There's already love there, right? We don't have to we don't have to go through the bell curve of learning each other. It's like, it's free. I love you. I'm here. I mean, I don't know if he said any of these things, but that's where I go when I hear the objection to the I'm vegan is that it's free. And that's what comes to me when I imagine it's free in this circumstance. So upon further examination, it's like I was angry that even the language again, I don't want to be pushing relationship problems that are not in there, but it's like when she was talking about how she felt about this guy in the dream, sort of mansplaining her about the free salmon, I thought of a relationship dynamic. The language in the email was something like, oh, he's being that guy. So that sort of, again, difference in values. I remember this man with the salmon isn't the boyfriend, but it's that idea that Zendaya is angry, is a reaction, I think, to the relationship ending and changing. And then upon further examination, filthy. It's a post-tsunami. So what's a tsunami but a rising up of water that changes everything in the landscape? What happens in a breakup? We have a rising up of water, emotion, that
Yes.
ruins the entire landscape as it was and changes everything. And it's brief. Tsunamis aren't forever. They go in and they go out. It's just a wave.
Yeah.
But it's a huge, enormous wave that changes the landscape of everything. So that was an interesting detail that would never have come to me if I didn't know about the breakup. And then the white fish, not pink, sick and dead. I could, and the water, dirty brown. I mean, both of those images are just more of the same, right? It's, more evidence that this is not the place. We could trip off on white versus pink. Pink is the root chakra of red and the white color of all light. And the mix between that is like a heart-centered high consciousness color, pink, but it ain't there. So the sustenance offered, even if she left her veganism behind and said, I got to eat the salmon because it's the only thing available, it's like that salmon is sick and has no heart, has no love. Pink, love. Yeah, water, dark brown and dirty. So then this is interesting. There are these bottles of beer. And there's 4 and then there's 3, right? He gives her 4. And then there's this mishigas about like cleaning off the bottles and who's going to die if they drink them because it's sterile, because it's alcohol. What's interesting to me is the 4 and the 3. 4 is a number of structure, and a relationship is a structure. But that relationship broke. It ended. So 1 gets taken away. There's no longer a structure. What is there? There's 3. What is 3? Profound creativity. Mother, father, child, artist, canvas, painting. And so it's like she gives him the 3 bottles, she keeps the 1, and that somehow to me is, now that I know about the breakup, that piece, the bottles of beer. What is beer? Alcohol. It's not like enough alcohol to have it be a symbolism of drunken debauchery and escapism. It could be thought of as the sort of light, breezy escapism of the relationship. I don't know. I'm sort of making this up with the beer to honor that it's alcohol and that alcohol beverages are about escapism a little bit. But I'm more captivated by this idea of splitting apart the number that represents structure into a number that represents singularity from all which comes. Like once you have a 1, you're at a beginning. She has the 1 beer. She's at a new beginning. And she sort of gives him the 3 and says, I'll start from the top.
Oh.
And have a relationship with a nice vegan man who isn't trying to feed me sick salmon from a dirty river.
Wow.
Beautiful dream.
Cool.
Thanks for
That was
sharing it.
great.
Love that.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. You can find us on Apple Music, the iHeartRadio app, and anywhere you find your favorite shows. Head on over to michaellennox.com for information on astrology readings, the daily Astro Alert subscription, upcoming classes, and to join the mailing list.